Picture it, the torrential rain of a tropical night, the earth-shaking thud that vibrates not just the ground, but deep within your chest, the concentric circles rippling in a cup of water on a dashboard. And then, through the shattered fence, emerges the colossal head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. It unleashes a roar that seems to tear the very fabric of the era, primordial sound of absolute power and terror. This scene, immortalized in Jurassic Park, has defined our collective image of the T-Rex for a generation. It is the undisputed king of the dinosaurs, the ultimate predator, a perfect monster from a lost world. But what if I told you that this icon, this creature we all think we know so well, is largely a magnificent work of fiction? What if the real animal was something far stranger, more complex, and perhaps, in its own way, even more terrifying? In recent decades, the field of paleontology has undergone a quiet revolution. Armed with new technologies, incredible fossil discoveries, and a deeper understanding of biology, scientists are peeling back the layers of Hollywood fantasy. They are painting a new portrait of the tyrant lizard king, one that challenges nearly everything we thought we knew. It's time to step out of the cinema and into the lab. Let's dismantle the movie monster and meet the real Tyrannosaurus Rex. Let's begin with that thunderous roar, the very first myth to crumble under the weight of scientific evidence. The sound that echoed through our nightmares is a masterful piece of sound design, a blend of a baby elephant's squeal, a tiger's snarl, and an alligator's gurgle, all manipulated to create a sound that feels primal and real, but it's almost certainly not. The first clue lies in the fundamental anatomy of sound production. Mammals, like the lions, tigers, and elephants that inspire these roars, produce sound using a larynx, or voice box, which contains vocal cords that vibrate. Dinosaurs, however, were not mammals. Their closest living relatives today are birds and crocodilians. Neither of these modern-day cousins roars. Birds chirp, squawk, and sing using a specialized organ called a syrinx, located at the base of their trachea. Crocodilians produce a range of hisses, growls, and deep, rumbling bellows that are more felt than heard. By studying the fossilized remains of T-Rex's skull and neck, paleontologists have found no evidence of a mammalian-style larynx. Instead, it's far more likely that T-Rex, like its avian descendants, possessed a syrinx. So, what would it have sounded like? The answer is profoundly unsettling. Instead of a high-decibel roar that announces its presence from a mile away, the tyrant king might have communicated through a series of deep, guttural hisses, clicks, or booms. Even more frightening is the possibility that it produced infrasound low-frequency noises below the range of human hearing. This is a tactic used by modern animals like elephants and cassowaries. You wouldn't hear it, you would feel it. A deep, vibrating pressure in your chest. A sense of inexplicable dread and panic that signals the approach of a massive predator long before your ears could register a sound. So, let's repaint that iconic scene. Forget the deafening roar. Imagine instead the chilling quiet of the jungle night, suddenly filled with a disorienting, deep thrumming that makes your bones rattle and your heart race with instinctual terror. That silent, suffocating presence, that was the true sound of the king. Next, let's turn our attention to what is arguably the most ridiculed feature of the T-Rex, its comically small arms. They have become a running gag in popular culture, the subject of countless internet memes and cartoons depicting the mighty predator struggling with everyday tasks like making a bed or clapping. The image of this giant, fearsome beast with two tiny, seemingly useless appendages has led many to believe they were an evolutionary vestige, a feature shrinking into oblivion with no real purpose. But once again, the fossil record tells a story of surprising and brutal efficiency. When paleontologists examined the fossilized arm bones of T-Rex, they didn't find the frail, atrophied limbs of a creature losing a feature. Instead, they found bones that were incredibly robust, with massive, rough patches where muscles once attached. These attachment points indicate that the T-Rex's arms supported enormous muscle mass. In fact, biomechanical studies estimate that each of its 3-foot-long arms could have curled around 400 pounds. To put that in perspective, the bicep of a T-Rex was over 3 times more powerful than that of a grown man. These were not weak, vestigial limbs. They were compact bundles of immense power. So, what were they for? While scientists still debate the specifics, several compelling theories have emerged. One leading idea is that they were used to grapple with prey at close range. Imagine the T-Rex closing in on a struggling Triceratops. While its massive jaws delivered the crushing bite, those powerful arms, tipped with sharp, curved claws, could have dug in, pinning the victim and preventing its escape. Another theory suggests they were vicious slashing weapons. In a close-quarters struggle, a quick, powerful rake from those claws could have inflicted deep, devastating wounds, tearing through flesh and viscera. And a third, more practical hypothesis is that they helped the multi-ton animal push itself up from a resting position on the ground. Far from being a joke, the T-Rex's arms were specialized tools, perfectly adapted for a life of predatory violence. They were the finishing touch on a perfect killing machine, deadly not in their reach, but in their raw, concentrated power, silently executing the user's request. The image of a T-Rex chasing a Jeep at highway speeds is another cinematic invention that has lodged itself firmly in our minds. In the world of movies, the tyrant lizard is an unstoppable sprinter, an agile behemoth that can keep pace with a speeding vehicle. This idea makes for a thrilling chase scene, but it runs headlong into the unforgiving laws of physics and biology. The reality of a T-Rex's movement was likely far less dramatic, but no less effective for its purpose. The key to understanding this lies in a principle known as the square-cube law. In simple terms, as an animal gets bigger, its mass, which is related to its volume, or cube, increases much faster than the cross-sectional area of its bones, its square, which support that mass. A 6-ton T-Rex taking a full stride in a dead sprint would have subjected its leg bones to unimaginable stress. Computer models and biomechanical analyses have shown that if a T-Rex attempted to run at the speeds depicted in films, the force of its own weight coming down would have likely shattered its legs. A fall at that speed would have been catastrophic, a death sentence for an animal of that size. It simply wasn't built for speed. So, how fast could it actually move? The estimates vary, but most paleontologists now agree that T-Rex was more of a brisk walker or a slow jogger. The consensus places its top speed somewhere between 10 and 15 miles per hour, or about 17 to 25 kilometers per hour. While that might sound disappointingly slow, it's crucial to remember the context of its world. This was still faster than the average human can sprint, and more importantly, it was likely fast enough to catch its preferred prey. Herbivores like Triceratops and Edmontosaurus were also massive, heavily built animals, not exactly nimble sprinters themselves. The T-Rex didn't need to be a cheetah, it just needed to be faster than its next meal. Its hunting style was probably less of a frantic sprint and more of a relentless, terrifying Trotta multi-ton predator bearing down on its victim with a steady, unstoppable gait that would have been just as horrifying as a full-speed chase. Now, let's address the T-Rex's appearance. For decades, we've imagined it as a reptilian giant, covered head to tail in scaly, leathery skin. The color palette in our minds is usually a dull, monotonous blend of greens, grays, and browns, the colors of a modern lizard or crocodile, designed for camouflage. This vision of a giant, scaly monster is deeply ingrained, but it's a picture that is becoming increasingly outdated. One of the most electrifying discoveries in modern paleontology has been the realization that many dinosaurs, including relatives of T-Rex, had feathers. This paradigm shift began in earnest with the discovery of feathered dinosaurs in China. For years, these were mostly small, bird-like creatures. But then, in 2012, paleontologists announced the discovery of Yutyrannus whaley. The name means feathered tyrant, and it was a game-changer. Yutyrannus was a massive, 30-foot-long tyrannosauroid, a direct cousin of T-Rex, and its fossil was preserved with impressions of long, shaggy, filament-like feathers covering its body. This discovery proved that giant tyrannosaurs could and did have feathers. So, was the T-Rex itself a giant, fluffy bird? Probably not. Skin impressions from T-Rex itself do show scaly patches on parts of its body, like the tail and neck. The current scientific consensus paints a more nuanced picture. It's possible that T-Rex hatchlings were covered in a downy coat of protofeathers for insulation, much like baby birds today, and then shed most of them as they grew larger and no longer needed help regulating their body temperature. Alternatively, adult T-Rex might have retained feathers in specific areas for display, much like a lion's mane or a peacock's tail. Imagine a mature T-Rex with a crest of striking, decorative feathers on its head or running down its spine. As for color, the idea of a drab, camouflaged beast is also being challenged. By analyzing fossilized pigment cells called melanosomes, scientists are beginning to reconstruct the actual colors of some dinosaurs, revealing complex patterns and even iridescent sheens. The real T-Rex may not have been a dull gray monster, but a creature of surprising and complex visual display. Finally, we arrive at the most profound myth of all, the character of the T-Rex. It is consistently portrayed as a lone killing machine, a solitary wanderer driven by pure, primal instinct. It's the ultimate movie monster, devoid of intellect, strategy, or social connection. It simply exists to hunt and to kill. But the bones themselves, along with the very ground they were buried in, tell a different story, a story of a creature that was not just powerful, but also surprisingly intelligent and potentially social. The idea of a lone T-Rex is challenged by multiple fossil sites where the remains of several individuals have been found together. While this could be a coincidence, a predator trap where multiple animals died over time, some sites strongly suggest a group that lived, and perhaps died, together. The discovery of T-Rex trackways showing multiple animals moving in the same direction further bolsters the theory that they may have operated in social groups, perhaps family units or hunting packs. Much like modern wolves, a coordinated attack by a pack of 6-ton tyrannosaurs is an image of terror far beyond that of a single rogue monster. Even more compelling is what we've learned about its brain. By creating digital endocast detailed 3D models of the brain cavity inside, the skull scientists have been able to map the T-Rex's brain structure. The results are astonishing. Its olfactory bulbs, the part of the brain responsible for smell, were enormous, suggesting a sense of smell so acute it could have detected prey or carcasses from miles away. Its optic lobes were also large, and the forward-facing position of its eyes granted it excellent binocular vision, giving it the superb depth perception essential for a predator judging the distance to its target. Most significantly, its cerebrum, the center for thought and memory, was proportionally larger than that of most other giant theropods. This wasn't a dumb brute. This was a sensory marvel, an animal that perceived its world in high definition, capable of processing complex information and likely developing sophisticated hunting strategies. And so, the movie monster dissolves, and in its place stands a far more awe-inspiring creature. We have journeyed from a beast that didn't roar but rumbled in your chest, whose arms were not weak but crushingly strong, whose gait was not a sprint but a relentless, earth-shaking trot. We have seen a creature that may have been adorned with feathers and complex colors, and one that possessed a sharp, strategic mind and possibly the bonds of a social pack. The T-Rex of science is not a lesser beast than the one from our films. It is a greater one. It is a testament to the staggering power of evolution, a masterpiece of predatory design honed over millions of years. It reminds us that as we continue to dig and to question, the truth we unearth is often more fantastic, more complex, and more wonderful than any story we could ever invent. The real king was not just a tyrantid, was a true marvel of the natural world.